have you here, and I welcome you all to this free webinar on CCNA certification and career benefits of that. Let me introduce myself once again. I am Michael Gabriel, and I am a CCSI trainer. CCSI is Cisco Certified System Instructor. I'm an official Cisco trainer, and I have trained people on CCNA and CCNP, and I've also seen them successful, and I've got a lot of feedbacks on my training that it has been good, and they have got placed in various organizations as different roles. So my job for you today would be to take you forward through what is going to be the advantages of CCNA, and basically post that we will also see what are the career opportunities after completing this CCNA certification. So that is going to be the agenda for this next 1.5 hours. So as you can see on the, are you able to see the slide, please? Okay, thank you. So we will start the agenda with just talking about what is this course all about, and it's all to do with computer networking. So we will see that, and then we will see why specifically are we talking about Cisco certification here. What is so special about Cisco certification? Then we go into specifics of what CCNA is all about, and then we're going to have a discussion about the job profiles. And I feel that after that, I leave the floor to you for more questions if there are any, and I'll be glad to sort them out. All right. So that is how we're going to take it forward. So let's get started without spending any more time. There is a question from Mr. Amir. What's the expected jobs after finishing CCNA R&S? I think, Amir, we are part of that. We would be taking you through that in that fourth slide, which will be job profiles after CCNA. And I think during that time, you would be knowing what are the career opportunities after completing the CCNA routing and switching. Okay. All right. So basically, when we talk about this CCNA certification, routing and switching, it is all to do with ensuring that we provide a network infrastructure in any organization we talk about. So today we know that most of the organizations require the presence of internet, right? And they need the public network to ensure that they have access to various resources. So whenever we talk about a computer network, it is nothing but a connection of multiple systems together for the purpose of communications and file sharing and resource sharing, etc. So we take about any organization, any structured organization today, like as we can see here, hospitals, banks, IT organizations, hotels, hotel industries, and power sectors, government agencies and research labs. Any kind of such organization do need the presence of internet, and for which the organizations require an IT infrastructure, right? So just to begin with, we need that IT infrastructure in place so that we would be able to have a setup to connect to the internet. Okay, so we do have our home networks like that. We just slightly extend it in a bigger environment or more scalable environment like hospitals or banks. We need to have a better IT infrastructure. So basically, your job after completing CCNA would be to ensure that these equipments are managed and monitored regularly to ensure that they are available, because availability is a very important factor here. We are talking about a 24/7 availability to all these equipments, because just assume that if we type google.com and that Google web page doesn't open up, so that means there is some problem in the Google web server which has to be managed by the administrator, network administrator of Google. So that's what I mean by availability, ensuring that this continuity of service is always there, right? So that's what is all about networking. So networking is always a field which will prevail till the time we need the presence of internet, and that I think is always going to increase only, and that's exponentially increasing over the days. As we can see, the internet population is growing day by day. There are so many users who have started to have emails access, and they are able to access a lot of resources and sites on the internet, which obviously means that everybody is getting aware about the internet and the networks. So basically, internet is nothing about connecting multiple networks together all over the globe, and that becomes the wide area network. All right. So that's just I wanted to give a gist of what is networking and how exactly are we able to realize the presence of networking in any sector that we can consider. All right, so coming into the specific details of why specifically we talk about Cisco here. So there are a few points which I've jotted down to make you realize and appreciate that why Cisco certification is required in the IT job market today. So generally, when we talk about Cisco is the world leader in networking. Cisco has a glorious past. Uh, Cisco was initiated in 1984 in San Francisco, and I think you can see this Cisco symbol, which is the golden gate, which that represents the golden gate symbol. That's the Cisco's icon. And Cisco, since its inception in '84, it has been always on the rising. In 1990, it got public in the NAS DOQ market, that is the share market, US share market, and then currently it has acquired a lot of companies with, and they have partnered with different organizations for uh, multiple products. So that's the second point which I want to emphasize here. They've got a huge portfolio of products, and when we talk about the portfolio of products, I would appreciate if you could go to cisco.com and go into the products and you can have a view of it. But just to give you an overview of the various uh, portfolio of the products that Cisco has. Cisco have been successful in manufacturing and sales of various networking products like routers, switches, wireless access points, voice over IP, phones, then VPN, virtual private network equipments, intrusion prevention systems, firewalls, and so on. There are so many products like this, and Cisco has always been developing, manufacturing, and selling all these networking equipments. And this has always ensured that Cisco has always been in the forefront, and most of the IT infrastructure, when we talk about IT infrastructure, we do have end user devices, which are the servers and the PCs and laptops which we are using, and of course the intermediate components are the routers, switches, firewalls, and so on, that basically optimize our network. So what I'm talking about generally focuses around these intermediate components, which are the routers, switches, firewalls, and these devices are exclusively used to ensure that there is some kind of optimization. For example, we use a switch to ensure that we can connect multiple users in a network and to provide optimized path for the users to communicate through the network. So basically, a switch can create a LAN, local area network. So there are so many purposes of these switches and routers, and that's what we are going to study in our CCNA curriculum, which will be an 8-year course. So that's just to give you an idea of how strong the Cisco's market is. Actually, the products of Cisco has been implemented uh, in all over the globe, and I believe that this has been the success behind why everybody requires a Cisco certification, basically. So you're well versed with the Cisco configuration of the devices and things like that. So that makes it all the more great for us to have a Cisco certification, and we are always in demand in the job market. So that's not the only opportunity that Cisco gives us. There is the third point emphasizes on the career path. We do have a good career path in Cisco, starting from the basic associate level, which is the CCNA, and going on till the CCNP. So we have the CCNA, and then we go on to the second level of certification, which is CCNP. That is Cisco Certified Network Professional, and the third is CCIE, that is Cisco Certified Internetwork Expert. And let's understand that all these levels of certifications are generally completed in a hierarchical manner, which means that without a CCNA, you won't be able to do your CCNP. And without a CCNP knowledge, it is difficult for us to complete a CCIE. Okay. Of course, it is not mandatory that to take a CCIE you need to have a CCNP, but to take a CCNP you need to have a CCNA certification. Okay. And not only that, we talk about different portfolio of certifications that depends on what exactly we want to do in the Cisco IT environment. Like, let's say I want to specialize myself in security. So we do have a CCNA security certification, then a CCNP security certification, and a CCIE security certification. Like, let's say another person wants to do VoIP, voice over IP related certification. Then we do have CCNA collaboration and CCNP collaboration and CCIE collaboration. And let's say somebody wants to do routing and switching. Yes, we then do have CCNA routing and switching, CCNP routing and switching, and CCIE routing and switching. So we do have a wide range of certifications which will cater to the needs of different IT infrastructure requirements. Like predominantly you need to do more of security related, then you can focus on the CCNA security certifications. But to but as a startup to all these certifications, I personally feel that one should be well versed with the CCNA routing and switching certification, because that lays the basic foundation for you to go in as to venture out into different fields of the Cisco certifications, like it could be security or voice or collaboration or design, whatever, right? And talking about the content that we would be covering in our Cisco certification courses, the content is more, even though yes, of course, we certainly talk about the Cisco's specifics when it comes to the configuration, like we do configuration to manage our routers and switches. We would be requiring yes, I'm sorry, yeah, Safar has a question here. Yeah, yes, Safar. For CCNA security, you need to have a CCNA. That's right. That is right. Absolutely. I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. So it's coming back to the point. Um, the content that we are covering in this CCNA or whatever Cisco course, especially CCNA, for example, CCNA routing and switching, because that's a base certification you need to complete to launch yourself onto the next level of certifications, whether you want to do a CCNP routing and switching or a CCNA security or any other Cisco course. Uh, so basically, there is a lot of emphasis on the specific concepts. All right, the concepts are very clearly given when we talk about the Cisco certifications. We do have different certifications from different vendors, but even in a heterogeneous environment where we have different uh, vendor routers and switches apart from Cisco too. But people feel that a person completing a Cisco certification would have the knowledge of how the devices function and so on, because that aspect has been very much emphasized in the Cisco certification. So that's the fourth point all about. There is more demand in the industry. Uh, the certifications lay emphasis on the technology. Okay. But from a practical perspective, yes, we would be focusing on how to configure Cisco devices specifically. So certainly that aspect we can't, we can't consider other vendors because it's a Cisco proprietary technology, right? So there are certain other technologies which are independent of how Cisco works. So that's one point which I wanted to stress. Then certainly the fifth point, that is, it helps an IT aspiring professionals to stand out from the crowd and market himself or herself in a better manner. Certainly, um, I would say that completing a CCNA is today almost mandatory or like a base or like a passport for you to venture yourself into the networking field. And I'll just talk about the profiles, job profiles soon. And when we talk about that, I'll try to tell you how it will be useful for you to upgrade yourself to the higher levels of certification as we go in from time to time. So that certainly is a very important aspect when it talks about uh, how important it is for an IT professional to keep going on with the certifications at the higher level. And this is and one important point is that these Cisco certifications do have a validity date, which means that after you complete your Cisco certification, for example, you complete your CCNA, you have to retake the same exam probably in another 3 years time. So the 3 years time is the time for which you try to uh, recertify yourself. Probably you could recertify the same Cisco certification, or you could recertify, maybe you can give a shot of a higher level certification like CCNP to ensure that your Cisco certifications do not expire, right? So we have a question from Safir. From virtualization cloud perspective, is Cisco going to change the certification to absolutely, Safir. There are there is a Cisco certification on cloud, that is the CCNA cloud, and that they have made it to ensure that this is absolutely in the latest updated curriculum, CCNA cloud. We do have so these are all very latest certifications that have just been initiated in last 2 years, the CCNA cloud and this cloud portfolio of certifications for Cisco. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay. And another question from Amir. Yeah, that's right, Amir. You can take your CCNA voice. There is no Cisco certification on voice currently. Instead, there is a certification on Cisco CCNA collaboration. Collaboration is combining voice and video. So today, there is no specific certification on voice and specific certification on video. It's a combination of both. So yes, you can take that Cisco voice after your R&S to ensure that your 3 years don't expire. Exactly. Perfect. Absolutely. So yeah, please, you have to make a note of this, that your certifications do expire in 3 years time, and you need to ensure that you upgrade yourself to a higher certification. So this is to ensure that Cisco wants all its certified professionals to be updated with the latest technology that Cisco offers. So for example, in current Cisco CCNA curriculum, we might be having a router. We might be talking about a model of router that is currently good in the market. Maybe 5 years down the line, this router might be dumped and a new, better router might come in. So we don't want the certified professional to just know only about the older router, and they want them to have a latest knowledge about the new products that have come into the market. So that exactly makes them to be updated and always active on the front to ensure that they are updating their certifications, right? So that makes a Cisco certified professional to be always active and ensure that they are updating themselves every 3 years. Yeah, so I hope, Amir, your question is answered, right? All right, thank you. So these are some reasons why we would prefer a Cisco certification. There are so many organizations. Most of the organizations do have Cisco, but it is not only Cisco equipments that they use. They have a heterogeneous group of devices, like it could be a Cisco router and some other model of switch like Juniper model or Nortel. But still, people prefer a Cisco certified professional because they are sure that a Cisco certified professional has good knowledge and conceptual knowledge on the devices and the technology. So when I talk about CCNA routing and switching, you have knowledge about Cisco routing and switching from a vendor neutral perspective too, not just Cisco specifically, when we talk about the technology part, right? So coming to the specifics about the Cisco CCNA routing and switching certification. And as I told you that this would be the very first level of your Cisco certification, because you start with CCNA and then you can launch yourself to the second level of certification, which is CCNP, routing and switching, and then your third level, which is CCIE, routing and switching. So CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associate. So we know that this is a very base level of certification, which will be useful for somebody who is just entering into the field of networking and who want to look out for a job in the field of computer networking as a network administrator or a network engineer. We'll talk about the profiles in a moment soon. But before that, just to give you an idea of that these are the certifications that this is the very first certification that we would be taking up, and the exam code for the CCNA current version is 200-120, which is the CCNA routing and switching. And there are two options which we can use when we are taking the first level of certification. That you can either take it as an individual CCNA certification, which is 200-120, and the other option would be to take it up as a separate exam, a couple of separate exams. One is ICND 1, which is interconnecting network devices part 1 and interconnecting network devices part 2. And these are the two options by which you would be able to manage your CCNA certification overall. So it's like splitting up and taking it individually, or we can take it up as a separate single exam that is called as CCNA. In both cases, you will be awarded a CCNA certification from Cisco, right? So there are no prerequisites for this certification. If you want to take up this exam from a Cisco perspective, there are no prerequisites. All you need to have is you may need to have a proper ID proof to ensure that you take it up. It's a Pearson VUE Center exam, so you have to register yourself in Pearson VUE online, and you have to book your slot on a specific date to take up the exam, and you would be done with that. Okay, so once you do it, you would be getting the result immediately, post which maybe in another 1 month or so you would be getting your certification from Cisco. The exam cost is $295, Safir. Okay. So talking about the exam, it is going to be an online simulated exam wherein you will have a combination of objective questions like multiple choice, match the following, drag and drop, and then subjective questions wherein you would be required to fill in or input your configurations on the router or switch. Basically, that is to test how good you are in the configuration, the practical hands-on stuff. So certainly that is also one of the aspects in the exam that will be tested in your CCNA certification exam. Okay, and of course we would be talking about all this when we are experiencing the curriculum. Every class that we take on, we would be seeing what are the questions, how are the questions going to be framed in your certification exam. So I hope you're getting the understanding of the benefits of CCNA, the course and the exam, all those things. I hope you're aware. I hope you're clear on that. Right. All right. Thanks. Now we come slightly to the technical part of it, and of course I will not be giving you the exact I'm just going to give you an overview of what are the topics that we would be covering in the CCNA routing and switching, and all these are the official curriculum from Cisco. Cisco Learning and Development have developed this curriculum, and it has been like they manage this curriculum and ensure that it is always updated. So we have got a lot of versions that have gone by, and this is a new version that has evolved, and this is the topics of the current CCNA routing and switching version. So even though we have a lot of evolutions of the CCNA certification, we still do have the basics as it is. So when we talk about basics, we talk about the fundamentals of networking. So the first topic which we see here is all to do with the operation of IP data network. So we would be talking about the TCP/IP protocols and how the protocol works and all those things, and we would be discussing the functionalities of the layered approach, that is the OSI model and the TCP/IP model, which are exclusively very much helpful for a network engineer to understand, to troubleshoot and facilitate the functionalities of the IT infrastructure. Then, as this course more focuses on two major concepts, routing and switching, we would be certainly getting more knowledge on the Cisco certification, Cisco routing and switching knowledge, and so the second topic is on more to do with the LAN switching technologies, wherein we will talk about the different concepts regarding how switches operate, how a basic switch functions, and we would also discuss about the Ethernet technology, which is one of the prime LAN technology which we use in most networking environments in the world. And this Ethernet technology is certainly a concept that is used all over the world, and everybody prefers Ethernet as a LAN technology, and we would be focusing on that particular Ethernet technology for our LAN implementations. So we would be discussing that, and further that we would be focusing on the routing part, wherein we will first talk about the addressing structures. Like we do have IP addresses. The current version is version 4, and we do have a latest version, that is version 6. And these IP addresses are basically used to identify one device from the other in a networking environment, just like how we do have different names to identify ourselves. So like that, in a network, many devices are there. So to identify each device, we need to have an IP address. So that's about IP addressing, and we would be studying more about that IP addressing, because we would be using this IP address to design our network. So when we talk about designing the network, we would certainly need an IP address. So that's about the IP addressing part that we would be discussing. Then we come to the other bigger part of the CCNA curriculum, which is the routing part, where we will talk about the routing technologies, how a router works, what is a routing table, what are routing protocols, and how they deliver the best path to the router to make decisions. The router is kind of a device which basically helps your data to move from one network to another. For example, you are in a particular network and you want to access google.com. You need to go through multiple routers to reach that google.com, because google.com is in one network, and your network is a different network. So you're connecting multiple networks, and that can be done using a router. So we would be talking about that part and trying to help us understand what routing is all about. Then we do have some special IP services, and we will be discussing those services as well, like some monitoring services using certain protocols like SNMP and so on, and also some remote access methods, Telnet, SSH, and so on. And we would slightly jump into the field of network security, and we will see how we can secure our devices using the network various tools to secure our routers and switches. And one of the important aspects, which is a very practical concept, is the troubleshooting part, which certainly will be dealt in the CCNA curriculum. Troubleshooting is basically how to fix your problem, how to fix a network issue when one arises, and what are the steps involved that we can use. Of course, every troubleshooting methodology, every troubleshooting approach might be different, but there will be a procedural way by which we go ahead to analyze and find the root cause of the problem. So we would be certainly dealing with all these approaches and methodologies to ensure that we are good in this part of the curriculum as well, the troubleshooting part. And finally, we do have the wide area network technologies, which would be covering courses on certain protocols like TPP, HDLC, frame relay, and so on. These are all protocols that we use to connect between multiple networks on the internet. So basically, when we talk about connecting two different sites on a far geographical location, maybe from one part of the US to another part, or maybe from US to UK, you want to connect, you would be using these protocols to make it up and build up the channel through which you can send your data, your communication. All right. So this gives us an overview of the various topics that we're going to cover in our Cisco CCNA curriculum, routing and switching curriculum. I hope that's clear, right, for you, as an overview of the various CCNA routing and switching topics, the various Cisco curriculum topics. All right, so here comes the most important part. What are the job profiles after completing your CCNA? Now, I would say that certainly one needs to complete a Cisco basic certification like CCNA to get into the job market as a network engineer or different roles. As you can see here, we got some few profiles, job profiles, like network engineer, protocol testing, and network administrator and IT manager. So let me explain what are these job profiles in a brief manner, and we will see how the knowledge of CCNA would be implemented in these job profiles. So the very first job profile which you can consider after you're completing your CCNA would be to join any organization as a network engineer. This job profile is more specific to people who are good in installing and configuring the devices. So certainly a CCNA certification would be apt for this particular job profile, because you are expected to be well versed with the configuration and installation procedures of a Cisco device, especially if you are working in an environment where all the devices are Cisco devices. Then yes, you are the right person for this job. because you have completed your CCNA certification and you're good to go, and you're very much ready for installing and configuring these devices. For example, I want to configure a Cisco router and I want to set up a VPN between two sites. Yes, since you know, since if let's say you have completed your CCNA and you have done your CCNA security, then you are very much good to take up this role, and you would be the right person that an organization would want to hire you for completing this task. Like you can build a VPN tunnel between one organization branch to the headquarters maybe. So that's exactly the role of a network engineer. A network engineer's job would just not be limited to this, but also various management tasks like uh, setting up of a different IT infrastructure. There are so many organizations that hire network engineers from an organization that provides these services. Like they generally call them as managed service providers. So we do have these managed service providers who have uh, a pool of network engineers, and they tie up with various organizations, and they provide network engineers to complete the tasks for various organizations. Maybe because those organizations do not have a permanent resident engineer who does these jobs for them. So they need a network engineer to do that job. So maybe the network engineer's role might involve a little bit of traveling, because you need to go to different organizations to install and configure it. But of course today uh, uh, most of the configurations can even be done from remote locations. So you can stay in one location and do that. But in some cases of a hardware failure or things like that, you certainly need to be physically present in the location to revamp and restart the device again. It's kind of things like that. So that's the job profile of a network engineer. I hope it's clear about this particular job profile, the network engineer job profile. All right, thanks. Uh, let's move on to the next job profile. Um, I would certainly say that this job profile would just not, I mean, it certainly would be a suitable job profile for a Cisco certified network associate. It's a CCNA certified person, but it will just not be limited to only your Cisco certification knowledge, but you do need to have a little bit of programming knowledge, like maybe you need to know your scripting languages for your protocol testing. Now this job profile would generally talk about developing new protocols and new uh, implementations of new protocols and testing them on a test bed maybe to see if they work according to the optimizations, or you need to tune them a little bit and so on. So this job profile certainly would also require some additional programming knowledge so that you're well versed with that and you can certainly be a good protocol tester. It's specifically about network protocol testing. Okay, so that's the job profile. The next job profile which we would be discussing is something that we would have heard of very often. People say, you're a CCNA, yes, then you're good for a network administrator role. What is a network administrator role? So I would say there is not much difference between a network administrator and a network engineer. From a knowledge perspective, for both the profiles, a Cisco certification is uh, is good enough to begin with. A CCNA certification is good enough to begin with, and but there are some small differences between a network engineer and a network administrator. A network engineer's job would be to initially do the installation and configuration of the devices, while a network administrator's job would be mostly related to managing those devices after the installation is successfully completed. Which means that, let's say I have set up a router between two sites. Maybe one site is in US, Texas location, and another site is in maybe Washington, and you want to have a VPN setup, and you have done it. Now, what is the job of the network administrator? After the network engineer has successfully done this, you're going to monitor on a regular basis to see if the VPN tunnel is successful, or is there any problems in the VPN tunnel. So you want to ensure that this tunnel is always up and running, and there are no security issues, and there are no bandwidth related issues, and so on. You want to ensure that you have a full-fledged tunnel, highly efficiently used, 100% efficient, and there are no downtimes and things like that. So a network administrator always needs to be on his toes and to ensure that they are always up and running. So this is more of a role wherein you need to be available 24/7, which means that your job profile just does not limit yourself to a 9 to 5 job role, but you might be expected to be available anytime the network goes down, because the downtime for a network is kind of a outage, like a power outage. You need to ensure that your network is available 24/7. So a network administrator would be mostly limiting themselves to one or two locations, unlike a network engineer where they may have to travel to different locations to install. A network administrator's role would be more limited to a couple of locations. So maybe your traveling might not be that much as a network engineer. That I would say some of the basic differences between a job profile of a network engineer and a network administrator. And certainly once you complete your basic Cisco certification, like a Ccna certification, you're certainly expected to climb up the ladder in this field of computer networking and in this field of network administration. So maybe you start up as a you start up as an associate network engineer or associate network administrator, and then you go to the next level of maybe a network administrator. Maybe your scope of work slightly increases. You're just not limited to managing 2 devices. Maybe you're given now 10 devices to manage, or maybe one full floor is given to you to manage. That is all the IT infrastructure. The floor has to be managed by you. Now, as we go on to the next levels, okay, we do have a role called IT manager, which would be a higher level. That is from a management perspective. So in this ladder of network administrator's role, you might go up to a senior network administrator, and then you might go into the IT manager's role. This IT manager's role certainly would be a good role which you would want to be maybe 6 to 7 years down the line when you're in the same profile. Maybe a network, you can go into the higher levels in the technical side as a senior network engineer, maybe in some 3-4 years, and then maybe in some 7 to 8 years you might end up in a IT manager's role. But certainly from a knowledge perspective, you are expected to go to the next level of certifications to ensure that you get this opportunity as an IT manager and so on. So maybe you might need to do your CCNP certification after your CCNA. I mean, you just don't, you can't just stagnate at the CCNA itself. You certainly need to go to the higher level like CCNP certification to ensure that you get this opportunity. So that's how this IT manager's role is. Certainly IT manager would be the person who will be managing many engineers who would be configuring, installing and troubleshooting and managing the IT infrastructure. So your job role would be to ensure that these users and these engineers are doing the right job and ensuring that they have the proper knowledge to execute certain tasks. And it would be more of like a mentor role where you would be motivating them to do the right job. And also the best practices. So adhering to the best practices. So that's one more important role of an IT manager, ensuring, verifying if the engineers are adhering to the best practices. So these are some of the opportunities that we can think of after completing our CCNA, and not just that, maybe a few years down the line after completing a second level of certification like CCNP, or maybe a different portfolio of certification like a CCNA security or a CCNA collaboration or a CCNA cloud. Different types of certifications are there, and we can certainly take those courses to ensure that we are able to manage those different uh, portfolio of products that Cisco has to offer. Okay, so I hope these job profiles are clear. Okay, thank you. So I just feel it's time for some queries and discussions. So if there are any queries and discussions, please feel free to let me know so that I would be glad to help you on this. If there are any queries on the CCNA certifications, um, you want to know specifically about certain topics which you want to know about and you want to check them if they are there on the Cisco certification, you can do ask me. Okay, thanks, Safar. Yeah, thank you. Um, okay, when our next course on CCNA will start, just give me a minute. Uh, just Safar, just hold on because I'll give you the exact dates. All right. We do have a batch starting on January 22nd, and there is another batch that starts from January 25th also. I hope you got the dates, Safin. Um, yes, Gulam, that's one of the best books that I would refer, Todd Lamley. It's a wonderful book for your CCNA learning. Certainly, I would recommend that. Also, I would highly appreciate your feedback on today's session. I hope it was informative and yeah, thank you. Okay, February 2016 job fair. Uh, Gulam, may I know your question, please? All right. What else should I know?